our guest speaker, Alexis Caccio, and she is going to talk a little bit more about her experience here as an undergrad, what she's doing professionally in healthcare, and impart her wisdom to you all as future healthcare providers.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for having me here tonight. My name is Alexis Caccio. I'm an occupational therapist at Villanova University Center in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. I graduated from Villanova in 2018, and I went to NYU to obtain my master's in occupational therapy in 2021. I've been an OT for 4 years, focusing on outpatient upper extremity orthopedics. If you'd asked me as a college student what I would have wanted my future career to look like, I probably would have said something very vague like, I want to help people. And I remember feeling both excited about the future, but also absolutely terrified of it. What do I do? Who do I become? What if I choose wrong? And if you're feeling even just a little bit of that tonight, just know you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I grew up in New Jersey, and I came to Villanova as a psychology major because I've always been fascinated by people. I wanted to understand how they think, what motivates them, and to learn from their life stories. I also knew that I was interested in healthcare because I wanted to help people through vulnerable moments and to truly assist them every step of their recovery journey. At Villanova, I was a part of SPOTS, the Speech, Physical, and Occupational Therapy Society, later serving as the vice president and president during my last 2 years here. And SPOTS was one of the most influential parts of my college experience because it allowed me to interact with other students who had like-minded career paths. And it helped me start to build relationships with professionals in the field. It reminded me that healthcare starts with first making connections with people. And while Villanova was an exciting time when I was there during both NCAA men's basketball championship wins. Behind all that excitement was this looming question of what happens after graduation. I knew I needed guidance, and I found the pre-health advising department, and I met Dr. Louise Rousseau. She introduced me to occupational therapy as I only had a brief understanding of what this field was. I enrolled in her Intro to OT course. And one of the major assignments was to read a book called Ordinary Miracles. It was a collection of true stories written by patients working with OTs during the recovery from a traumatic event. And that book changed everything for me. It reframed OT not as a job, but as a way of helping people reclaim the ordinary parts of life that we often take for granted. Being able to get dressed, cook dinner, hold your child, write a note, using your hands. I realized I didn't want to just treat the physical deficits. I wanted to help people restore function. I wanted to help people become independent and get their lives back. Dr. Rousseau also introduced me to SPOTS and mentored me through the graduate school application process. The connection I had with her meant more than I knew at the time. And that's the first lesson I'd like to share with you all tonight. To never let go of meaningful connections. They may shape your future in ways you cannot predict. While I was still a student at Villanova, I shadowed at Bryn Mawr Rehab to gain a better perspective of the scope of OT. This inpatient hospital had multiple units treating patients with spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, and dementia. But the experience that truly changed my direction was shadowing at Helping Hands Rehabilitation back in New Jersey with Carolyn Zabriskie and Judy Toth. I instantly fell in love with hand therapy. There was something so powerful about the complexity of the anatomy, the way that small improvements week by week could transform someone's independence. And most of all, the relationships. You see patients for months. You celebrate their milestones. And you watch the body heal in ways that feel almost miraculous. I remember Judy once mentioning that they had a therapist who used to shadow and later came back to work weekends. And I remember thinking to myself at that time that I want that to be me someday, and years later it was. And that moment taught me something else. You don't need to have a clear direction or specialty planned out. You just need to trust the process, that you will find your passion and follow what excites you. After graduating Villanova, I attended NYU for my master's in occupational therapy. And graduate school was completely different than undergrad. Our class of 56 students went through everything together. We had the same courses, the same labs, the same exams. We studied together, we shared notes, we leaned on each other. It was intense but deeply bonding. I completed fieldworks or internships in home care, skilled nursing, inpatient mental health, pediatrics, and outpatient orthopedics. I was in my last semester before graduating, and then COVID hit. My final clinical placements were canceled overnight, and I felt like the rug was being pulled from underneath me. But here's where another connection mattered. An NYU alum, Todd Webb, who works at Alliance Orthopedics, took me in during those uncertain times. I experienced a fast-paced sports rehab clinic, and I learned all about the anatomy and body mechanics of the shoulder, which most traditional hand therapists are often not exposed to. And because of that connection, I continued learning when the rest of the world felt stalled. After finally obtaining my master's degree and passing my board certification exam, I worked for 3 years at Advanced Wellness in Freehold, New Jersey. It was an outpatient multidisciplinary clinic, and I worked alongside chiropractors, physical therapists, and pain management specialists. And it was an incredible first job. I learned balance training, gait analysis, posture correction, and I did some work in upper extremity rehab. But over time, I felt a pull back towards something more specialized, hand therapy. Not because I disliked where I was, but because I knew where my passion lived. And it's okay for your career to evolve. It's okay to lean more deeply into your interests. So I started reaching out to other hand therapists on LinkedIn, people I'd never met before, asking them on advice on how to get into hand therapy over a 15-minute phone call. And that led me to the virtual Hand to Shoulder Fellowship. It was a 1-year advanced learning experience focused on training to become specialized in upper extremity rehab. If I hadn't been open to making new connections, I might not have found this program. And if I hadn't found this program, it might not have landed me where I am today. While still in the fellowship, I saw a job posting at Philadelphia Hand to Shoulder Center, which was one of the most respected upper extremity rehab centers in the region. The job was for a certified hand therapist. It was someone that holds specialized credentials, indicating that they are an expert in the field of upper extremity rehab. I was not yet, and I'm still not yet a CHT, although I'm working on it. And I almost didn't apply to that job, but I did anyway. And I was pleasantly shocked to get a call from Lauren DiTullio, the director of rehab. And on that call, she talked about the history of our company and about the rehabilitation of the hand textbook, which was written by leaders in hand surgery and therapy. I realized that this was the same book that I had been studying for over the past 6 months of my fellowship. And now in my current role, I have the privilege of being able to work alongside these same surgeons and therapists who contributed to that book. And that moment felt surreal for me. In my current role, I treat patients who are days out from surgery. I custom mold orthoses to promote protection and healing. And I'm always targeting my treatments towards the goals that my patients need to get back to doing. Just last week, my colleague was working with a patient, learning how to use a new prosthetic hand, and she had him making pancakes right there in the clinic. And all of this happened because I didn't disqualify myself before someone else had the chance to evaluate me. Philadelphia Hand to Shoulder Center has a nonprofit called the Hand Rehabilitation Foundation, which funds fellowships, mission work, and it hosts an annual hand rehabilitation symposium in March. I reached out to Dr. Russo and I was redirected to Jennifer Gavin. And that reconnection is what brought me here tonight. Years later, the same pre-health advising department that introduced me to OT helped me reconnect towards students who were walking a similar path that I was not too long ago. And that's the power of staying connected. So if you take one thing from here tonight, let it be this, that your career does not have to be linear. Mine sure wasn't. There were delays, there were setbacks, and many moments of doubt. But every step of the way, even the ones that felt off course, helps build my skills and perspective. Occupational therapy, and especially hand therapy, is a field where you don't just restore motion, you restore independence and identity. Hands allow people to interact with the world around them. And when you help someone regain use of their hand, you are helping them regain their life. So to all of you sitting here and wondering what your path will look like, follow the threads, stay open to making new connections, hold on to old ones, message the professionals you aspire to be, and apply to the job that you think you're not ready for. You never know which opportunities will lead you exactly where you're meant to be. Thank you all again for having me here tonight.